beat.
Oh, good morning. Indie Life Adventures coming to tell you about day 2 in Japan. So the N is Nick, the D is Dory, and we're trying to brighten up our video with some real life background, and hopefully you can see a little bit of the window from our Rikoyan that we're staying in. We check out today at noon, so we are going to recap yesterday, which was Friday, October 18th.
All right. Well, we got good sleep last night. I think we slept, what was it, 8 hours? We got a full 8 hours, I think.
Yesterday was our most severe case of jet lag. It was brutal. It took everything we had to stay up till 8 p.m. I mean, to the point where we just had to go walk around the neighborhood because if we stayed in our room any longer, we were going to fall asleep. So, yes, we fell asleep at 8 and we made a pact not to get out of bed till 5 a.m. and we actually slept till like 10 after 5. So, holy cow. Hopefully today is better because yesterday was rough.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yes.
All right, so let's do a recap of yesterday. This is, that's day 2.
The day 2 recap because today's day 3, right? Or am I mixing it up? Was yesterday day 3?
I don't know. Today's day 4.
Is today? Okay, so then we're doing a day 3 recap.
Whatever.
Yeah, we're confused. We're on vacation. It's been several days now.
We're
so
the
day
next
3.
recap. The label on the video will be correct, so don't worry about it. We're doing a recap of yesterday.
Yes.
How about that? Well, should we start with our breakfast?
Yeah, I think we should because yesterday's video started with our egg salad sandwich that we tried out for breakfast. Yeah. And so we kept up the theme of 7-Eleven and walked to the 7-Eleven and had our breakfast there. So I selected a pancake that had the syrup and butter built in. And I'd heard about this on a few different podcasts and wanted to give it a try. And then Nick, who's all about protein intake, what did you choose for breakfast?
It was a ham and cheese burrito. Yeah, it was good. Lots of cheese, decent amount of ham, and you just nuke it for 30 seconds in their 1500-watt microwave.
Yeah. So. And my pancake definitely didn't taste nutritious at all. It tasted almost like a dessert. I don't know what they do to their breads here, or at just 7-Eleven, but it is the lightest, fluffiest. It's almost like angel food cake consistency.
Yeah, it's pretty light.
Yeah,
but
delicious.
The pancakes are good for sure.
Yep, the 7-Eleven latte and the pancake.
If you want to see that, just go to the short. We'll upload that one for you guys.
Yeah, we did do a little quick video.
So there's some humor in that one.
So after our 7-Eleven breakfast, I don't even remember if we came back to the room or if we just took off on our walk. But we did a lot of walking yesterday. I think I had started the Garmin midway through the walk and we ended up doing 4 miles. But all in all, we still got, by the end of the day, well over 20,000 steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I hear is pretty common for tourists in Japan, that you get lots and lots of steps. And so far, that's proving to be true. I bet there's going to be a day we'll hit 30,000 steps.
I was hoping it was yesterday, but...
Yeah. But the walk was fun because we had no real destination. We were just going with the flow. But we ended up in another town. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Ueno?
Ueno? U-E-N-O?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But before we even came to the town, we were walking through the streets and you could see in the distance some greenery, like a park. And from looking at the map, Nick determined it was, I don't even know if it's a national park or what exactly it is, but that's where they have the zoo, the Tokyo Museum,
National Museum,
a Western Museum,
yeah.
Not Western as in U.S. Cowboys Western, but Western as in the west of the World Museum. And as we were getting closer, there were lots of school buses. Like it appeared that it was like field trips, kids, like tons of kids, all in uniform, going to these different museums.
Yeah.
And so we walked through there. The green space was refreshing.
But before we got there, we got to go to a couple shrines along the way.
Oh my gosh!
So there was the one shrine that had a big torii in front of it, and then that took you down the pathway to the shrine, and that one was the shrine of good fortune and marriage. Was it marriage?
I think so.
And there's a few others, but apparently, after looking into that one, and I'll try to reference that so we can show you guys more pictures of it. But that was significant to maybe Japanese movie stars, I think.
I know, and I didn't get the correlation there because it did talk about that on the sign, that it was like the shrine of good marriage, but also that it
business and good fortune, I think, were
okay, and that must be what the tie-in to the movie stars.
So, maybe to kind of clue them in, you'll notice that at the shrines, a lot of people are walking up and they're sitting their prayers, and so they'll, they're making their prayers for good things in their lives, and so these shrines are basically occupied or to specific deities that are basically, I guess, have their sovereignty over different parts of our lives, right? So in that concept, people will visit different shrines for different purposes and pay their respects and wish for good fortune and in their life. And so if that's something specific to what they're dealing with and they're hoping for some good outcomes, they might visit a different shrine. So I think that's kind of how that works. I may be completely off, but it seems to be that's probably kind of close, at least in concept. So,
and from walking around, it seems like this city was just built up around all these shrines, because you'll be walking and there'll be like huge skyscrapers, and then right in between them is this old wooden shrine.
Yeah.
And so they're everywhere. I mean, absolutely everywhere. You're walking along and there's another and there's another and there's another.
Tucked in these little alleyways, and so they're definitely revered, and they don't want to remove them. It's part of their culture for sure. But they have no problem just building up everything around them. So.
Yes, and I was trying to understand how the process worked. So when we were at the one marriage and good fortune, I was paying attention to the way that people would come and interact with the shrine, and it was just very few visitors. It wasn't anything like this one right by our Ryokan that has like thousands of visitors. But the way the process looked is that you walk up to the front of the shrine, and then they have this bin where you throw in some coins, and then there was this giant rope thing that you would swing it around because there was a bell, and you'd chime the bell, and then you would, and I may have this a little wrong, I'm just going off memory, but you'd bow twice, clap twice, say your prayer, and then bow again and depart. And so we gave it a try. We did our best to be reverent and go through the process and say our prayer, and tried to interact with the shrine appropriately. So it felt very cultural of trying to learn how to do it. But there were shrines everywhere.
So we made it to the shrine, and then we continued our walk, and that took us down the road. And like I said, in the distance we saw a kind of a elevated area that had some greenery. I'm like, oh, that looks like there's something over there, so let's go check it out. And that took us across the main tracks of the Ueno station.
Yeah.
And then we kind of made our way around there, and then we just kind of fell into a market, right?
Yes. And it was all your doing. It was super cool. So we had been walking through the park area and walking through city streets, and then we saw the giant bus station. And I remember hearing that a lot of really good food is inside the bus stations. And so I was like, let's go in the bus station and see if we can find like a little restaurant to eat some lunch. But Nick was like, well, did you see what's past that? And I hadn't noticed. And so he's like, well, let's go take a look at what's past that. When we passed up the bus station and kind of got on top of a hill, it was as if we were in a huge city center with just giant buildings and billboards and cars and traffic. But whenever we crossed that big intersection, underneath all the train tracks, there was built up this market underneath it in every nook and cranny. It was amazing. It was like you walked through and you were surrounded by every type of vendor you could possibly imagine. Whether they were selling clothes, seafood, there were restaurants, there was gadgets, knickknacks. It felt like acres and acres of space. It was as if it was almost like a Japanese flea market / farmer's market, just a market.
Just an open market, open air market.
Open air market built under the train tracks. And it was weird the way the train tracks looked. It was almost, it gave the appearance of being like the outside of a big stadium. It was all metal and everything was tucked up underneath it. And you just, there were so many different pathways and the seafood assortment that they had. I mean, I don't even know what all the different seafood items were, but there was octopus and squid and all different kinds of fish and some of the live crabs and it was just, but interestingly, it didn't stink. Like usually anytime, like if you go through an area, I don't mean to be offensive, but the one that comes to mind is Chinatown. Every time you go through like Chinatown in San Francisco and they've got all the fresh fish out, it always just smells so fishy. Even in DC when you go to the fish market. But here it wasn't stinky. I don't know, but everything, it was very high-paced, tons of stuff, and fascinating. Like I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Not for someone who doesn't like crowds though, that's for sure, because it was very congested.
Definitely, lots of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of reminded me of like, I don't know if you have any video gamers that like video games, but Final Fantasy kind of built up around like a fictional city, but they have like cities and markets and big areas of commerce that are built up under railroad tracks, and that's what it reminded me of. And it kind of showed like maybe they had some inspiration from Ueno Station.
Yeah.
In that area as well. So that was kind of cool.
Which I'm excited that when we check out of here today, our next place that we're going to is in a town called Shinjuku. But then after that, we have one more night in another little part of Tokyo before we head to Osaka. And that one last night that's going to be in a capsule hotel is near Ueno Station, because I'm excited to go to that market again. Like I want to take it all in, because we were a little bit rushed this time because we had reservations for 1:30 to get back here near Asakusa, right? Is that how we...
Asakusa?
Asakusa. The town we're in right now is Asakusa. And we had 1:30 reservations for the Samurai / Ninja Museum. And so we couldn't spend as much time in the market as I would have liked, because we're like, okay, we still need to get some lunch and get back for our reservation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we walked and walked and walked.
A lot of walking, but it was great because we just had our little day packs on, and it was supposed to rain pretty heavily yesterday. And I feel like we lucked out because it just drizzled barely. Like I barely even had to use my umbrella. It was a really great overcast, nice weather. Right. Good day for a walk.
Well, let's step back for a sec too, because once we made it past the tracks the first time, before we made it to the open air market, like she said, there was like a large area with all the museums and stuff like that, but we were going to describe that very much. And it's basically like a huge green area that's surrounded by the city, but there's also like a giant, was it a pond? Yeah, so it took us. So we walked around this area. At first, I thought as we walked through the area where the Tokyo National Museum was, and then we kind of took a left down what looked like basically kind of like a reflecting pool area. So if you think of like the National Mall in the U.S. Capitol in D.C., it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
If you kind of think of that big wide open area in a rectangular-esque shape, and then they have fountains in the center, and off to the other side is more I guess it was their museum or something like that on one side, and then
The zoo, even.
there was a zoo on another side, and then a few other large buildings that were kind of looked, I don't know, important and shrine-like, and old. But then we kept walking down the path, and there was a sign. Well, before we get to that, there was a giant, like, fenced-in area, and we, and I didn't know if it was like a cricket field or a baseball field, but I thought,
or even if it was a zoo exhibit, because it had huge fences.
Yeah, I thought it might have been where they
Huge
kept
fences.
the dinosaurs, because of how tall the fences were, and I was just like, I don't know what you would keep in there, but besides dinosaurs. But you did have the ballpark style lights, so I'm like, it might be a ballpark, right? So that's kind of what I was guessing. And when we got there, it was a like a minor league team ball field. There was no seating to watch the game. Like, if you were gonna watch it, you had to stand.
It was very strange because it was like the biggest fence ever, so like no balls were ever gonna leave that field.
Yeah.
And it was not manicured. Like, it looked almost like what's that kid's movie?
The Sandlot.
The Sandlot. It looked just like a Sandlot field with old dugouts, but there was not a single seating space for spectators.
Yeah.
But it had giant towers of lights.
What about 40, 50-foot fence?
Yeah, it was so strange, and it was just right there, smack dab in the middle of this park area.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was kind of odd.
Yep. And so we saw that, and we discovered there were no dinosaurs. So I was let down. Jurassic Park did not exist there. But if you did need a place to keep a dinosaur,
that would work.
I think that would work if anybody's looking. And then so we kept walking, and we saw a sign for
rowboat.
It was a rowboat, yeah. We saw a sign. It had like a person in a rowboat. Looked like they were working hard. And
on the maps, it showed there were all these ponds, and it looked almost like a little lake and a pond. And we saw the rowboat, and I'm like, let's go find the water.
So we did. We found the water. It was crossed downstairs and across this little bridge where there was another shrine that we visited. It was actually a shrine that had been, I don't know if it was moved or burnt down or during bombings during World War II.
Oh, that's right. On the sign, it did say it had been destroyed by the Americans in 1945, and that they had to rebuild it.
So they rebuilt it, but it was really interesting because it was smack dab in the center of all these ponds, but you wouldn't know the water was there because
the lily pads. But it weren't even lily pads. It was like lily pads on stalks. It was like a forest of lily pad trees almost, but you couldn't even tell there was water there unless you were looking for the water. So I don't exactly know how they rowboated, or if they only did it in the winter when the plants were all died off. But everything that was water on the map was just a field of green lily pad stalks. So yeah, but it was kind of crazy looking because you could see on the edges of the field of green lily pads were the giant skyscrapers. So it was interesting.
And maybe it wasn't lily pads. Maybe it was some sort of water plant.
Yeah, water plant.
We'll call it a water plant with broad leaves.
Yes, and then there were koi fish because there was a place when the bridge crossed where they had a barrier to keep the plant growth back, and they had giant koi, but they weren't as pretty as my dad's koi because Dad has like bright orange. These look just like brown.
Yeah.
But
So so that was the
park.
The park, yeah. And so after we left there and we made our way down to the market, which we were rushed because we wanted to get back to, what was that?
The Samurai
Our
Ninja
Samurai Ninja Museum.
We did.
So let's just say this. It is what it is.
Well, I will, before you say it is what it is.
I'm going to liken it to Branson's Ripley's Believe It or Not.
On a budget. Yeah. And the thing is, we saw this place when we were doing our walk, and the outside looked kind of cool, and I read all the reviews, and the reviews were amazing. It was like talking about like this was one of the greatest things they did on their vacation, and you could. So anyway, I was like, let's buy tickets and go see this. And when we got in there, it was underwhelming.
Yeah, I think we should have spent the money on the tickets at the Tokyo
I
History
know.
Museum.
We should have went to the Tokyo Museum, because what we saw, the Samurai Ninja Museum, was not a museum. It was as if some guy bought some relics, and there was like one room where they talked about samurais, and then took you to another room where they talked about ninjas, and then let you go to a room that was lined with like packing foam to throw plastic, what do you call the ninja stars?
Ninja stars. Let's call them ninja stars.
Ninja stars. And the frustrating part was at the end, they're like, if you leave a positive review, you get a free item to take with you. So we were totally scammed. Like, talk about a tourist trap. My dad has warned me my whole life about avoiding tourist traps. And we fell smack dab head first into a $50 tourist trap, which was just garbage. Like, I mean, granted, I learned about samurais and ninjas, but I could have learned just as much by like reading Wikipedia or something.
Right. So I will say, I mean, it's always
A lesson learned.
it's a lesson learned.
And we should have known, because every single person on the tour was a foreigner.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, if the locals aren't going to it, then you know it's just a tourist trap.
Right. And I mean, it's not just that. It's like the speaker, right? I'm pretty sure he was British.
He looked Japanese.
No. I'm sure. He might, but he had a British accent. So, in any case, when you're delivering your authentic information in English only,
Yeah.
I think that.
Oh, that's a good point. He did only deliver it in English.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, so lesson learned, a 1-hour tour to see some artifacts that somebody could have just, I mean, it was not a museum.
They were nice artifacts, I think.
Yeah, they had some cool swords and some cool armor.
So I would say it's as much as a museum as Ripley's, believe it or not, is a museum. For me, it doesn't meet my high standards. But it is a nice collection. So if you're interested in that, it's a nice collection. However,
but I bet the Tokyo National Museum has like for real exhibits.
Oh yeah.
And it's probably less of an entry fee than this little dinky place was.
Right, but I will say this though, the speaker was informative. If you didn't have any knowledge whatsoever of samurais, right? Then you might have learned something.
Yeah.
So that part is not knocking it. I don't want to say that because they were very, very nice and
Yeah. It's a scam. Don't go.
But it's just imagine a couple floors with rooms about the size of our Ryokan, right?
But you say a couple floors, but really you would go to one floor to one room to learn about the samurai. Then you would go to another floor to one room to learn about the ninja and throw the ninja stars.
And you didn't learn much about the ninja.
No.
Because, well, they're ninjas, right? You don't see ninjas because that's the point.
And
so how would you know anything about them?
And who knows if this guy's information was even factual.
Some of it was.
Yeah.
Like, there was some factual stuff.
But I guess the part that frustrated me was we left a super cool market to rush back for this thing. Now, there was one thing we did on the way back, which was awesome. We were hungry, and we were trying to figure out what to eat, and Nick chose such a good place for lunch.
I don't know what they call it. It's the
I wrote it down. It's called Yakiniku Matobi. I think Matobi is the word that designates what type of restaurant it was.
Okay.
Maybe. Tell them about it.
But in any case, it's like back in the States where you go to the restaurant where they have the little grill.
Now you say that like there's tons of them. Shout out to Sam and Stacy who took us to one of these places in Kansas City, or Olathe, Kansas, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So we had been to a type of restaurant like this before, but I don't see a lot of these in the U.S. But there seems to be a lot of them here.
Oh yeah, there's a lot here.
But anyway, yeah, tell them all about it.
It's the one where you sit down and you have a little personal grill, and they bring you
a big pile of raw meat.
A big pile of meat. You cook it yourself, and you season it yourself, and you make it how you want to, and you cook it to the temperature that you want to. All that risk of giving yourself probably some sort of food poisoning if you don't cook it enough, but
or if you mix up your utensils, which I kept doing, because they give you these metal tongs to take the raw meat, and you get like this little tray and all the different seasonings, and then you use the metal tongs to move the raw meat onto the grill and back and forth. But then I guess you also use those same tongs to take the cooked meat back to your plate, or did you use your chopsticks?
Oh, it's like you're cooking.
Okay. Because I used but there were a couple times where I got mixed up and would use the chopsticks or the tongs on the wrong thing. It was like I had to really concentrate on keeping the contamination.
I don't know what she's talking about. In any case, you have a personal grill that's like a alcohol flame or a propane flame or something like that, and then it sits in the middle of your table, and everybody sits at your table, shares that area, and you cook your meat while you sit and enjoy your rice and your kimchi
and your miso soup.
So.
And the way you place your order is by how many grams of meat you want, and there's different categories of meat.
Yeah, you can get the specific cut if you like a really lean cut, or if you want some Kobe beef, they have Kobe,
the
Wagyu. So it just depends on what they have, or you can get a mixture. We just got like a pile of mixed meat. So.
And they had chicken and pork.
Oh yeah.
And we stuck to just the pile of beef, but it was interesting because you could specify if you wanted like the skirt steak or the mixture where it's like tongue and skirt steak.
I think I got one piece of tongue.
I'm not even sure what I got, but it was delicious. Like, I don't even care what type of beef or what cut of the animal was. It was so good. Like, I just don't understand, because I'd used the 3 different seasonings, but that meat was heavenly.
Oh, it was really good.
It was so good. Every bite was amazing. Like, I didn't want my little pile of meat to end. It was so good.
So yeah, that's what we had for lunch.
Yes.
And then we rushed back to the hotel so we could drop off our bags that we've been carrying around. Well, she was carrying around.
Because we went to a grocery store.
Yeah, we got some groceries.
I love going to grocery stores.
Yeah, and speaking of which, the grocery store, they have these little, you can't see very well, I'll hold it here, these little bitty cute cans of beer. And there's a couple different ones that they had, but it
was a great way to sample different Japanese beers.
I think, was it 90, 99 or 100 yen? Yeah, it's like 100 yen. So basically, 67 cents a can. And you can try a couple beers, so that was kind of cool.
So we had been toting that around, and so we dropped that off before we went to the Samurai Museum.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about the Samurai Museum.
Yes.
Oh, we got some candy at the grocery store.
Yeah, some sour candy.
And
that was another funny thing. We went through like a department store that had a candy shop in it, and using our app, the Google Lens app, it'll translate it, and we could tell by the packaging they were Pop Rocks. But it's so funny seeing the English translation of the words. And do you remember what the Pop Rocks was? It was like
panic.
Crackling panic.
It was panic. Crackling panic.
And panic in your mouth.
Commotion in my mouth.
It was so funny just reading the translations. And in the department store too, they had sweatshirts, and there was this one sweatshirt that said real big across the top, it said Houston. And then at the bottom, I'm trying to remember exactly, but it was something about Texas is one of the nicest cities or something.
Yeah.
It was just really funny, Colin. It was like it was just really interesting to see the little nuances of the English language.
One of the nicest cities in, I don't remember. But
yeah,
in any
but
case.
Texas was a nice and diverse city.
Diverse city. Texas, it said Houston, and then it said largest city in Texas, right?
I don't even
I think that's what it said. And then it had a seal in the center, like the seal of the city. It said something like, something about whatever you just said it was.
Oh yeah, the nice. Texas is a nice and diverse city.
Yeah, a nice and diverse city. Yeah.
And then they had in the department store, there were different sections of clothing, and there was one, and they'd label the section like if you had a Nautica section or if you had a whatever other clothing brand. But this section was labeled as Americaholic.
Yeah, Americaholic.
So we were just kind of wandering around just to see the way things are done
It
here.
kind of reminded me, trying to think of how I would describe that store. It was kind of like an all-inclusive, like everything from kitchenware to clothing.
They had a bookstore and
to
a candy shop.
bookstore.
And then on the very top, because it was a big department store that was like 5 levels, and on the tippy top was like a kids' daycare, an English learning center. They had
like a little gym for the kids.
Yeah. So it was just, and then on the second floor, maybe, I don't even remember which floor, they actually had one of the sushi rotating restaurants.
Oh yeah.
You know, the conveyor restaurants, but it was like a huge one, huge. And so we had thought about, that brings us to our dinner. So the day's winding down. We are so tired.
Well, we come back here.
Yeah, because it was maybe around 6 o'clock.
I think it was before that.
And we just, I mean, we could have went to bed right then. We were so tired.
So we come back and we're just kind of like taking a break.
Yeah.
And we're about to fall asleep. And
we're each having to take turns keeping the other person awake.
Get up, stop, you're not going to sleep. And then she and I'd lay there for a little bit. She'd be like, nope, we're going to go. I'm like, all right. So we finally decided we were going to get around.
We just needed to walk around because we wanted to stay up till at least 8 p.m.
Yeah, and it was getting close to like 6 at that time. By the time we started, we decided we were going to leave. And then, well, we were looking. So we decided we would just walk around, maybe see some other sights. And it was kind of raining.
And we knew we wanted to eat something for dinner before bedtime.
We wanted to eat, but we weren't super hungry.
Yeah.
And we were tired as shit.
So tired.
Yeah.
So tired. Yep. So we just decided to walk. And we went in a different direction we had never been before.
Yeah.
And I felt like a zombie walking down the sidewalk. Like I truly did.
Yeah.
And I think I must have even looked like a zombie. Like I was just one foot in front of the other and we're walking and walking and walking. And we're looking at all the different restaurants trying to figure out.
Now there was a, before we saw the Bandai building, the Bandai Namco building.
Oh yeah, which I don't know anything about Bandai. But I do know, do they make Pokemons?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and they make the Power Rangers. But it brought back some memories from Nick's childhood, I guess, because he got pretty excited about the Bandai building.
Well, it's just cool, because Bandai makes really cool stuff.
Yeah.
What was there? It was the...
Pikachu?
No, I think it was the Charizard.
See, I don't know what any of these are. I'm just throwing out words.
And I don't know, I've never played Pokemon, but I just know that was a thing. I think it was like the...
Do they do Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yu-Gi-Oh? Who's Yu-Gi-Oh?
I remember my kiddos had Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
But what was the other one that you took a picture of me with?
With the dude?
Yeah.
The guy? I don't know what character he is.
What'd you call him?
Power Ranger?
No, it's like Rice or something like that. His name is like Rice in Japanese. I'm not sure. Oh.
I don't know. I don't know these things.
The one I stood doing the...
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know his name.
Well, you knew it last night.
I didn't. It must have been written on a placard. I did not know this character's name. Welcome to our world.
Dragon Ball Z. We'll just say that.
Okay.
We'll put the picture up. Anyway.
Yes.
So, we saw the Bandai building. There was actually 2 of them, but one has all the characters outside, kind of like stacked up, and there's some actually characters you probably never heard of. I want to visit again, get some pictures today, see if I can actually go inside, because it looked really awesome. And then we kept walking around, and we made basically a big loop.
And it got to 7 o'clock, and we're like, all right, we've made it a whole other hour.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to decide where to eat. And I was interested in maybe going back to the sushi conveyor restaurant we saw in the shopping mall. But Nick wasn't so much. He was just not so much in the mood for that. But we did pass a different sushi restaurant.
Well, so she kept saying, like, hey, let's stop here. I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it. And then we'd go to the next one. Hey, how about this one? Like, nah.
Because we passed a Sri Lankan restaurant, a Chinese restaurant. I thought it'd be cool to have...
Sri Lankan, not Sri Lanka. I think it's Sri Lanka.
And then we passed a Chinese restaurant, and I'm like, that'd be cool just to see if Chinese food here is different than in America. And he pointed out how close, like this might be the closest we ever are to China. But again, he wasn't feeling the Chinese restaurant.
Wasn't feeling the Chinese restaurant. So anyway, we kept walking, and finally I was like, I'm going to stop saying no to restaurants. We're just going to stop. So she said there was a sushi restaurant. And
there were lots of locals who kept going in. Lots of people going in. I'm like, that's a good sign.
So we walked in. They
sat us at like the bar.
And so I sat down, and
And we looked at the menu.
Looked at the menu as I sat down. Looked at the menu. It just kind of hit me, like, I'm so tired.
Yeah, he's like, I don't even want to wait for food. So we like apologized and left.
Yeah, so we got up, we left. They're probably wondering why, but that's okay.
But then we ended up having the most amazing 3-course dinner.
That's right. So we went
to the handy dandy
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. And tell them about our 3-course dinner.
All right, so we had a 3-course meal. And I want you to understand that I think 7-Eleven in Japan may be the only place that you can have a meal made of the same item, serving 3 different purposes, including your appetizer, your main course, and your dessert at the same time.
And we were not disappointed. It was
so
good. So tell them what we bought.
All right, so we got some water.
Yeah, we got water.
Anything else besides the sandwiches?
No.
Okay,
and sandwiches.
So it's just water and sandwiches.
We got the handy dandy trusty egg salad sandwich, and they only had one, which led to our diversification of the 7-Eleven sandwiches.
So the 7-Eleven sandwiches, they kind of come in a couple different things, but the ones that you'll find that are pretty good are, they have the egg salad sandwich.
Mm-hmm. That was what we got for our appetizer.
And that's a full sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had an egg salad sandwich, and so a half egg salad sandwich, half tuna salad sandwich.
Yep, our main course.
Main course. You got meat right there, right? So that's your main course. And then for the third one,
I was just so curious I had to try it.
It was
like a fruit salad sandwich. It had kiwi, oranges, I don't even know what other fruit, pineapple.
Pineapple, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like a whole like whipped cream.
Yep,
It was essentially like the fruit salad you get at a family reunion where it's like all the fruit in like a white creamy sauce on a sandwich.
Yeah, now you could have got a strawberry and cream sandwich, right?
I don't
remember. It was like a strawberry jelly and cream, but anyway.
Yeah.
She chose to go with the fruit salad sandwich. So.
And so we came back and laid out our smorgasbord.
Yes, it consisted of 7-Eleven sandwich wrappers.
I know, the residue from the table was just plastic.
And a couple baby beer cans.
Yeah, it was so good. I was not disappointed at all. And I was giddy at the fact that by the time we finished our 3-course 7-Eleven meal, it was 8 o'clock and we could go to bed.
Yeah, so now that 8 o'clock came around, as we're both exhausted.
So tired.
We're ready to take a nap.
Yeah.
Or go to sleep for the night. And we're just hoping that we
we were watching the clock. It's like, okay, 8 o'clock, let's go to bed.
Yep. But we managed to take all that time and it worked out. So we got 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah, we slept till, granted, I did wake up once at 2 a.m., but I just made myself go back to bed, and we got up at 5:15. And so, so hopefully today we can actually enjoy the evening hours without feeling like we're being hit by a Mack truck.
We'll see.
Now, as we wrap up this video, because that really did summarize yesterday, we are checking out of this Ryokan today. And I was talking to Nick about what we paid in points for the Hotel Ginza Centric Hotel, and then what we paid in points for this Ryokan. And they were not far off. Like, it was maybe just 1,000 points less for this one. Still very expensive to stay here. And if I'm being honest with you, it is interesting, but it's not so much fun to sleep on the floor on a mat. And it's not so much fun when you're exhausted to sleep on or to sit at these little tiny tables. And for practically the same price as we were paying for the Hotel Ginza one, I think I would have certainly rather have a real bed with a real couch and real chairs. And this was quite lovely. The location was amazing, but I'm ready to move on to another hotel. So if I'm being honest, the hosts are great. They're lovely, but this traditional Japanese room style, I'm ready to move on to
No,
normal
they do.
bed.
They do have regular Western style rooms.
They do, because it was a thing whenever you booked the room, you could choose a Western style or a Japanese style. And I honestly didn't make a choice. It didn't, whenever I booked with points, it didn't give me the option. So whenever we checked in, it was kind of a gamble of which style we'd get. And honestly, if I could have chose, I would have chose the Japanese style for the experience. So I'm glad having had done it, but I wouldn't stay here longer. I'm ready for a more comfortable room where we're not sitting on the floor and laying on the floor, because after walking around all the time and I'm tired and I'm looking for some more comfort.
Yeah.
So
It's a little difficult getting up and down off the floor.
yeah. The location is amazing though. Like we have access to everything.
Oh, yeah,
the
it's
views,
perfect.
like it's been just great watching out the window and people watching. So glad we were here, but excited about going to the next place.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Trying to hit my my step record.
So we're using their laundry facility this morning. Our laundry will be back in 20 minutes. And then we check out in 2 hours and we make our way to a new area. And we'll give you the hotel tour there and keep you updated on our progress. Thanks so much if you've hung in watching this whole time. My dad, I know you do. And keep the feedback coming. Hope this background proved more interesting than the plain background. It was funny though, because Dad gave us the perspective of like, yeah, your background was super plain. Well, if you saw this room, the whole room is super plain, but the windows are really where the magic happens. So hopefully you were able to see some of the city while we were videotaping.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for walking. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you later.
That's a wrap.